customer called and said their walk-in cooler isn't cooling again. We were just out here last week. Added refrigerant. I assume it's low on refrigerant again. I should really stop assuming. Let's get into it. All right, guys. Well, we've got a walk-in cooler that is not cooling. Let's see. Well, it's running, so that's a good sign, or a bad sign, I guess. It's not cold though. Sight glass. Now this is where it can really mess you up. That sight glass can either be full of refrigerant or it can be completely empty of refrigerant. Now this particular location, I've came out and put refrigerant in a number of times from a leak, and I've quoted a new indoor unit. So let's gauge up on it and see what's going on. All right, so we're gauged up with our filled piece probes. We're on measure quick here, and that's no bueno. So this unit's actually running in a vacuum. So there is zero refrigerant in this unit. Oh boy, future me is so pissed off right now. You see, I made an assumption. Yes, this unit's been problemsome. Yes, we've had to put refrigerant in it many times. My technician was just out here, but I can't assume it's automatically low on refrigerant. I have to check the system out. Well, let's give me a chance to redeem myself. Let's take a look at the inside system. All right, so here's our indoor unit. And that's probably all just wet from ice, from moisture. But we're gonna see, I've got my DR82 filled piece refrigerant leak detector. So let's go ahead and see if we can pick anything up on this guy. Now, I do have the outdoor unit off. Or the indoor unit off, excuse me. So my solenoid is closed. So let me open up my solenoid real quick. Now, let me show you what I did. I charged the system up with some refrigerant. I put my solenoid magnet on it. But as I was going through this system, notice what I seen. See that cap tube for our TXV has been rubbing out against the refrigerant line. Now the TXV, that cap tube is toast. It's got a hole in it, but I don't see that the refrigerant line has a hole in it. It wasn't picking up anything on the refrigerant or on the leak detector. But as you can see, my TXV is freezing up on the opposite side of the TXV. So with that cap tube burned through, that sensing bulb is not sensing anymore. So that power head on this TXV is going to be closed. So let's go ahead and change out that power head and we'll check this thing out. They're just trying to get this thing back up and running for now. I think they're going to accept the quote on a replacement, but for now we're just trying to get them up and running so that their products can be cold again and we can get this new evaporator ordered. All right, so I came back here on the roof and I gauged up on the liquid line in the suction, and let me show you what I found. So our suction is in a vacuum, our liquid is at 252 psi. Now that would make sense if our TXV was stuck closed. In essence, it would be pumping itself down. Now my question is, why isn't the low pressure switch stopping it? It should have been shutting the system down, but it wasn't. So I front seated the receiver, and we're gonna go ahead and kick this system on. Let's see what happens. and now it's not going to start up for us. Why? Because the low pressure switch is shutting off finally. Thanks, bad low pressure switch. All right, so we changed out that power head. So now we have a sensing bulb that will actually sense. We pulled it away from any copper so that it's not going to do the same thing again. Now, one thing to keep in mind, we can't always just assume that we know what the issue is. So last week we had a technician come out and automatically he assumed, well, the system was just out of refrigerant. He hooked on his suction line gauges, seen that it was low, the sight glass was bubbling, so he filled it up with refrigeration, waited till the sight glass was clear, and he rolled out. Well, then they called over the weekend and said that the unit really hasn't cooled well since. So that would make sense with the cap tube on the power head burned in two like that. So it's not sensing, so that TXV is actually closed, so it's pumping the system down in essence. So it has no refrigerant. So we pulled the power head off. There was positive pressure in the system, so we just did a hot swap on the power head. So now the unit is, well, ultimately it's back in service. We put the service or the solenoid back in. So now we're going to go ahead and go on the roof. We're going to turn the system back on. We're going to release the refrigerant out of the receiver. And we're going to see what the pressures look like on this system. It may very well still be low on refrigerant, so we're going to come back down and do a leak test on this unit down here. We'll figure out exactly what's going on. It's in defrost. So pulled it out of defrost, the unit started right up. Let's see what our gauges say. All right, 404. We got a 40 degree, 39 degree evaporator. Now that box is hot. We do have a clear sight glass. Now it could be because our technician was here last week that the system's going to be overcharged. But we're going to let this unit run for a little bit. We're going to see it drop down in temp. That coil temperature should start dropping as that box starts cooling. And then we'll pump it down and make sure that our head pressure doesn't rise. Because if it does, that'll tell us that it's overcharged. I'm also going to get a probe up here and get an ambient temperature so we can let Measure Quick do its job. All right, well, it looks like we do have a little bit of an overcharged system. So I'm going to show you what it looks like when you pump down a system to see if it's overcharged. So here we're on our receiver. We're going to front seat the receiver. Remember, we were at 274. Now as it starts to pump down, see how our head pressure is rising? 285, 286, 287. That means there's not enough room in the receiver to pull all the liquid refrigerant back in. So our head pressure is rising. So ultimately what would end up happening is this unit would kick out in high head pressure instead of pumping down. So we're going to go ahead and recover some of this charge, and we're going to get it down to the right pressures. See, this is where not being thorough can really bite you in the butt. Now, I almost did it myself. When I first got here, I assumed that it was just low on refrigerant again because we've been here so many times and my technician was just here. But as you can see, it had nothing to do with being low on refrigerant this time. Now, obviously, it was low on refrigerant last time because we recovered maybe half a pound out of the system. And we put in 4 pounds the other day. But as you can see, it wasn't really the low refrigerant today. It was that cap tube on the power head that was burned through, that was rubbed out. And so that TXV was stuck closed. So we replaced the power head, turned the system back on. Everything's working fine. Now, we didn't have to pull a vacuum on the system or replace the line dryer because there was still positive pressure on that liquid line whenever we replaced the solenoid. So we were fortunate at that. So we just did a hot swap on that. and got the system back up and running. But we really have to be thorough whenever we're going out to these systems, when we're going out to these jobs and looking at them. We can't just make assumptions. This customer, fortunately, is very understanding. I already had a talk with them. You know, they recognize their system is old. They're looking at replacing it. They're just trying to buy a little bit more time. So we've been out so many times putting a little bit of refrigerant in the system. So they recognize that there's a leak. So they know we didn't do anything wrong, but we also didn't do everything right. So you have to be thorough. You have to check out the system. You can't just assume that low refrigerant is low refrigerant. He obviously didn't put on his high side service gauge, or else he would have seen that there was positive pressure in the system. He would have seen that it was over 200 psi on the liquid side. Now, how could you be completely flat on refrigerant if that was like that? And then he obviously didn't completely check out the system once he put refrigerant in it. That's why sight glasses can get you in trouble from time to time. If you just clear the sight glass, well, what if the solenoid was closed? It was a bad solenoid valve. So it's closing the liquid line. So you're filling up the liquid line, the low pressure switch failed, and you're just dumping a bunch of refrigerant in the liquid line to clear up the sight glass. So you have to be sure you put on all your testing equipment and you make sure that you understand what your system is doing before you leave that job. Because then you just get callbacks. Then you could lose a customer ultimately from it. But this time, we were able to fix their issue. We will cut them a little bit of a discount. We're not going to charge them a service call or a return fee. We'll just charge them for the parts and labor. And then we'll call it a day. So this one's done. Appreciate you guys sticking around to the end of this video. Like and subscribe. It'd really help out the channel. The other thing that can help out the channel is merch. So you can see we have our Service Call Syndicate shirts. The back of it, I think this is the Dirty Coil Crew. We've got a handful of different shirts on our website, servicecallgearco.com. So check out our website. Check out the merch that we have. It would really help out the channel. Well, guys, until next time, we'll see you later.